Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry if you can hear my screaming child in the background. Who have we got joining us today? Oh, we've got 2 people. I don't know if you've seen the other classes, but there's such a lag, so people are probably watching, commenting. I'm just sat here like, is anyone there?
Yeah.
7 people. We've got Leanne, Jessica, Joe. Can one of you just comment, please? Make sure you can see us here is okay. 13 people. We've got Jade, Sarah, Samantha, Lauren. Thank you. Right, we're up and running okay. So, hello everyone. Today we've got a live talk with Mia Scotland from Yourbirthright. She is a perinatal psychologist and she's going to talk to you just about how to reduce your chances of getting postnatal depression. So if you've got any questions, I mean, I know it's a bit of a delicate subject and you may not want to put it publicly, but we're in a safe group, so don't worry. If you don't want your name to be used and you've got a question, you can send me a private message and I can read it out as we go along, that's fine. But yeah, don't shy away from it. It's perfectly normal. I suffered it a bit. Most of the women in here probably have or might. It's not anything to be embarrassed about, so please just ask your questions while you've got your chance. But otherwise, yeah, over to you, Mia. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Thanks, Jade. What a great thing that Jade's organising here for you all to get together and be able to share ideas and share support, etc. And sharing support is what mostly I'm going to talk about today because that is so protective in terms of our mental health. So if you have got a question, as Jade said, and you kind of want to ask confidentially, that's fabulous. But if you are happy to share, that's even better because as we know from when people in the media or royal families share their mental health struggles, it makes us all feel a little bit more normal because mental health is normal, and we're all on the continuum and we all have days when we slide down towards the poor mental health end and days when we're doing better, and that's completely normal. So when we have babies, when we get pregnant, that's a little bit of a pressure point in terms of stress levels. And so you are more likely to need to think more carefully about your mental health and protecting your mental health. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So my name's Mia Scotland. I am a perinatal clinical psychologist. That is quite a mouthful, but what that means is that I trained in psychology. So I trained in normal people, if you like, what makes people think like they do and behave like they do and act like they do. And then I went on to specialise in clinical, and that is about when people struggle and when they have problems with what they're thinking, feeling or doing. And then specialised again in perinatal, which means around the period of birth. So I specialise in pregnancy, childbirth, preparing people for childbirth. I'm a birth doula as well. So attend births with people and then support them postnatally as well. So I have a clinic in Thurmaston at Hugger House, which has a few baby specialists. I don't know if you've heard of it. And this is my book. Look, I'm going to show you my book. I wrote it ages ago, but because it's what I'm talking about today, I thought it might be worth you having a look at. You can get it for about £7 from Pinter & Martin or Amazon. And I'll sign it. If you want me to sign one for you, let me know. So that's me. I've got 3 babies of my own that are no longer babies. They are taller than me, most of them now. And I've never had babies during COVID-19 lockdown. So I can't talk to you from experience about that. I can just imagine, because I'm working a lot with women at the moment who are experiencing it. So I just, you know what? This will be something for you to remember, won't it? And my hat goes off to you. And I think it's important at a time like this to think about your mental health, because everybody who is not having babies at the moment is struggling. So it's absolutely fine and normal for you to be having difficult times at the moment in these incredible circumstances. Okay. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was something that I'm really, really keen on. But it hasn't quite taken off in the UK, but it will do, I think. I want to start talking to you first about how other cultures treat women who have had their babies. So if we go across the globe, or go back in time, what you'll find is there's some similarities in what all cultures do in terms of how they treat a woman when she has her baby. And they all do it for about 4 to 6 weeks after she's had the baby. And they all involve rest. They all involve making the mother rest. Some of them will kind of make her go to bed for 4 to 6 weeks, will stop her being allowed to do anything like cooking or cleaning or looking after the older children. They all involve food, like nutritious, healthy food that is cooked for her and given to her. She doesn't cook it herself. And they're all also about the mother and the baby having time together, so they get to know each other. So the mother doesn't have any other jobs to do. She just gets to know her baby, and the rest of the community kind of pitch in and help feed the mother and look after the mother's house and her other children, etc. Massage is another big one. So, for example, in some Indian communities, massage is something that I think they call it a malish. I know I'm in Leicester, for goodness sake. There's so many more people that could help me out with this. But if I'm wrong, let me know. So something called a malish, and it's about giving the mother a massage so that she feels relaxed and more comfortable and easier to give her baby the massage. So again, we're helping the mother to mother her baby. And there are some places like, I think in Malaysia, where they have hot stone massages, and the mother gets one every day. Every day, a hot stone massage. Can you imagine? How lovely would that be?
I want that.
Just like, yay, I want one of them. So again, for 4 to 6 weeks, and again, it's about looking after the mother, treasuring her, taking care of her well-being, making sure she rests and relaxes so that she can establish breastfeeding, recover from the birth, get to know her baby, and manage those tumultuous emotions that she will be going through because she has just had her baby. You can kind of see where I'm going with this, I think. So in Japan, for example, in some pockets of Japan, they literally call it mothering the mother, and they will even spoon feed the mother. I mean, it's quite ritualized. They'll spoon feed the mother and they'll talk to her in a baby voice while they're feeding her. I don't know how long that goes on for, but I've seen it happen in postnatal wards, like days after the baby's been born. So again, this real sense of nurturing the mother so the mother can nurture her baby. So what do we think? If you think about it now, so that's other traditions and cultures from Mexico to Asia to Africa, and China as well. They call it sitting the month. I could go on and on. So what do we do in the UK? All right, think about it here. What's our expectations of new mothers in the UK? Well, I think it's fair to say that a lot of it is how quickly can you get back to normal? Yeah. How quickly can you get out of the hospital? How quickly can you get into your jeans? How quickly can you be? People say, oh, you look so well. You look back to normal, but you're never back to normal when you've had a baby. Things have changed, yeah, for the better. I think the other thing that happens in the UK is we're told, make sure you sleep. So you're like, okay, I need to get some sleep. And then the advice will be sleep when baby sleeps. You're like, okay, I'll sleep when the baby sleeps. But as some of you might know with new babies, if your baby isn't sleeping in longer sessions, like no more than 20 minutes at a time, maybe in the day, that's almost impossible to sleep when the baby sleeps, because as soon as your baby goes to sleep, you maybe need to eat something. That's also important. And by the time you've made your sandwich, you've not even had time to eat it, never mind sleep. So it's actually not that helpful, that advice, I think. I remember the other advice that people used to say when I had little babies was leave the housework. It'll wait. And I remember thinking, oh yes, I mustn't prioritize the housework. It's more important to prioritize me and my sleep. But actually, I didn't want to live in a tip. I really didn't want to live in a house that was dirty and untidy. That added to my stress levels. So again, I think the support we give moms is limited, and I think it's at a cost. Not only depression, but all mental health problems. And interestingly, postnatal anxiety is now very, increasing in new mums in Britain. It's not, I think maybe a while back, depression was a big one, but now anxiety is too. You can have anxiety prenatally as well as postnatally, and depression. So stress levels, managing your stress levels is important to help you manage your mental health, whether it's depression or anxiety or a mixture of both. So I think we're in a situation where we have a baby in the UK and we look forward to bringing the baby home and cracking on with life with our baby. But the support network isn't there anymore. The village isn't there. People aren't necessarily there to do the hoovering and the cleaning and the shopping for you. There's an expectation that you're going to do it. You and your partner maybe are going to do it yourselves. Maybe you'll have, I don't know, your mother come in for 2 weeks or something. But often and increasingly now, people don't even want that because they want to be able to enjoy that kind of baby moon period on their own. So what I want to suggest that you do, and I do this a lot with the women that I work with, is you may have thought about your birth plan. You may have written a birth plan. You may have prepared long and hard for your birth. You may have had birth preparation classes, and you may have thought about what's important to you and how to get what you would like. And you may have been to see the hospital if you're having a hospital birth. And all kinds of preparation might have gone into your birth. But are you putting any preparation into your postnatal time? Okay, because I think this really, really helps to think about how am I, when I have had this baby, going to recover? You want to recover physically. Your body wants to kind of get back. It takes 9 months, by the way. I'm not saying in 3 days. It wants to get back to what it was before you had your baby. No, I'm not talking about weight. I'm talking about everything else settling down internally. But your emotional mood also needs to stabilize and to settle down. If it has been a difficult birth for you and birth trauma is on the rise and it's a big issue, if you've had a difficult birth, you're going to need even more recovery time. You're going to need even more sleep. How are you going to get that? And that's an important question. How are you going to get that? How are you going to recover? And if you don't build that in and think carefully about that, you might find that it's more stressful than you had envisaged, and you might find yourself feeling like you're struggling to cope. And when we feel like we're struggling to cope and our stress levels go up, that's when we're more at risk of things like feeling like we're failing or blaming ourselves or becoming irritable or not being able to sleep when we need to sleep, or crying a lot and just feeling overwhelmed. You will be feeling overwhelmed, crying a lot, getting irritable anyway. We just don't want that to tip over into you struggling. So I think if you haven't had your baby yet and if you're pregnant, I want you to write a postnatal care plan. And this can be dead fun. You can write all kinds of wonderful things that you are going to do when you bring your baby home. This is a very special time, when you've just had your baby. People talk about the baby blues, don't they, in day 3 to 5, because your hormones are more likely to make you feel kind of a little bit delicate and sensitive. But did you know that the baby blues can feel, they can feel lovely, actually. You can be all loved up as well. And so if you can kind of make that time postnatally as special as possible, it'll be something you will remember for the rest of your life. So it's not just about, right, who's going to help me with the housework, changing the beds, making sure there's food to hand, not just food in the freezer, but who's going to make the sandwiches, make the cups of tea, etc. But also nice things like, I always think we should budget for this, right? You put a budget into your nursery maybe and your pushchair. Maybe you've even put a budget into your birth if you've done hypnobirthing classes or something. Well, let's budget for postnatally as well. And I mean for you, because you're the special one here. You need to stay strong and healthy so that you can be there for your baby. So you know what? Bring in the best food that you can afford. Budget like home deliveries of your special favoritist foods. Really cherish and enjoy this time. Maybe stay in bed. Have it in your head that, I'm going to stay in bed for 3 days and stay in my pajamas for 2 weeks. It's easier now with COVID, right? Stay in my pajamas for 2 weeks. So And make your bed special. Buy nice bed linen for this time as well, just to make it, why not treat yourselves? You know, you really are. You have done something amazing when you've had a baby, and you will be a little bit delicate, and you will be feeling, you know, like you need an extra cuddle or two. So let's build that into your postnatal time. One more thing I just want to say, when you do this, so it's about practical stuff and reducing all the stress for you. Delegate. Make it clear how you're going to get help with the housework. And again, if you can budget for this, even better. Bring in the cleaner more if you have a cleaner, or if you have childcare with your older children. Again, different in COVID times, but, you know, get more help, not less. But it's also about nurturing you, and there's a really good reason for that. Okay, you might know already that when we birth our babies, we release a hormone called oxytocin. You will probably have learned that in your antenatal classes. Oxytocin is a bonding, healing, and love hormone. It's not just a birth hormone. When we've had our babies, you'll be releasing oxytocin when you touch and cuddle your baby. And oxytocin will help you to heal. Oxytocin comes when you're feeling calm. So if you can do things that are about you feeling nurtured, then you will release more oxytocin. And that is just good all around. It's good for you, it's good for your baby, it's good for breastfeeding if you're breastfeeding, and it's good for your physical and mental recovery. So relaxation exercises, anything that helps you relax before you've had your baby, do it after you've had your baby, unless obviously it's strong physical exercise. So meditation, mindfulness, your favorite music, your favorite, maybe there's specific massages you really like when your partner does, get them to do it a load. You see where I'm going with this? It's about nurturing you and taking care of you, not just because it feels nice, but because it's really good for you. It's really important to reduce your stress levels and increase your relaxation levels. So build that into your postnatal program.
I do have a question, Mia.
Yeah.
Kelly's asked, she's single and she doesn't have any support. So would you recommend anything in particular for somebody, especially in this time where she doesn't have friends and family that can come round and help her? She's literally, if she's on her own. And I will just jump in first and say things like this group hopefully will really help you, and if you can seek some online support like this way, like we're all a community here. So I don't know, Mia, if you've got anything else.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, no doubt about that. I think online support is key, and one-to-one support I think might also help, depending on what you feel would help you. But I think it can be tempting to go to big groups. But if you find someone, for example, on this Facebook group that you feel you could connect with, I think that can, I suppose what I'm trying to say is have conversations with people as well, as text messaging. I've got a friend who's single, and she said to me, she's not sure she knows how to hold a conversation anymore because she's been in lockdown so long. So, you know, for all of us, I think picking up the phone maybe, or having conversations with people as well is important. The question is, why are you isolated? Is it because there's nobody around to come to you, or is it because they're not coming because they're vulnerable? Because don't forget that, I think I'm right in saying the guidelines are that if your mental health is an issue, then, and if you are alone, then you can maybe have a connection with one other household safely. Because when you've got people in your house, you've already got connections with other people. Am I right in thinking that? So if there's one other person that you feel could help you, just one somewhere, then I would think about accessing that, because I think this is important for you. If you feel you need some, physical help, especially after you've had your baby, if there isn't a parent around, or there isn't a sibling around, or there isn't a best friend around, if there literally is nobody around that can come or will come, then yeah, it's going to have to be online. Stay in contact with your health visitor. They are your first line of support, and your midwife if it's very soon after you've had your baby. There are organisations out there as well, lots and lots that you can access online that have helplines that you can access 24/7. And again, if you haven't had your baby yet, then think about this and plan it in as best you can, get problem solving. If you have had your baby and you realize you're struggling because you are alone, then that's the time to start reaching out to people like your health visitor. It's so tough, because one of the things that sustains us when we've had babies is other women who've had babies. That's quite clear. And how you access that, just do it. If online is what you're left with, absolutely don't let that put you off. Get out there, connect with people, put your big brave pants on, and tell people, I need to talk to people. I feel a little bit alone in all of this. It's okay to do that. People will respond. People want to help. It's part of their nature.
It's true. So please just comment in this group if you're ever feeling down, lonely. Either you can always message myself. The other people in this group, I'm sure, are feeling the same as you. You won't be the only single person in here. So please just reach out, and you'll be surprised actually how many people will respond to you, and then you won't be feeling like that anymore. So please just don't be alone, basically.
Absolutely.
Going back to the support, Faye's just said she's with the baby all week, and then on a Saturday her partner just takes over. She has a nap and a bath, and it just really helps her like regain that week. And I think it's just important, even if it's just one day or a few hours, it just reboots you ready for the week ahead. So if you can have some sort of routine in place like that, I think that's a really good idea, Faye.
Absolutely. And I think it's really, really valuable if there is a partner involved to get the partner, when the partner kind of takes over, it's so good for them to understand why it's so difficult to have the baby. So literally hand the baby over for as long as you've got. It might be you've only got an hour and a half because you're feeding or whatever, and you do something for you and make it ritualized every single week, because time alone, not time alone, but time without having to be instantly interruptible is very good for us. It's good for the soul. I remember when mine were little and I reached a point where I thought, right, something needs to give. I'm struggling here. We didn't have any money at the time, but so I just get on the bike and I would do some window shopping every Saturday morning, and it was only an hour and a half, but it made such a difference to the rest of the week. It rebooted me. So it doesn't have to be for hours or half a day, though that's good too. It can be half an hour. You can do a lot of rebooting in half an hour.
It's true. Like, even if I feel crappy one day because I'm stuck in here and I'm the least person that does exercise or anything, but I'll just go for a walk around the block with Martha, and it's surprising how amazing I feel after, compared to just staying in, moping, not wanting to go out. So even just a little walk, it really does you the world of good. And that's
Definitely.
So, yeah, definitely get out. Change the scenery.
The problem with being depressed or low or fed up is it saps our motivation and it saps our energy, and so we find it quite difficult to get past that and get up and do something. And so if you feel that, that's kind of one of the things you're struggling with at the moment, I would say sometimes a routine can really, really help, because then we're going for a walk at 11 because that's what it says on the planner. And it's really important that you just do it, because there's something called in psychology therapy called behavioral activation, and it's the treatment of, it sounds so simple, but it works, treating depression by getting people to do stuff. So I call it doing your A and E. Your A is something that is an achievement. Make sure you do an A every day. Now, keeping your baby alive will do. I say that glibly. What I meant was keeping your baby dressed and fed. And E is the other one, which is enjoyment. Just do one little thing for you that you enjoy. If you do one of those each day, that will make a difference. And it's not forever. The thing about depression is when we're in it, we think it will never stop. We feel hopeless. We feel like it will never end. What's really, really important is to know that it will end. I think there's an acronym for hope that I've seen, which is hold on, pain ends. And it really does. Depression is transient. It will pass. And if you can talk to other people and connect with other people who've been there, they'll be able to say to you, I didn't think there was any hope. And they'll say to you, but my gosh, there absolutely was. And everything I felt now it's just not the same. I'm just well now. It's very, very different. So yeah, you might be struggling, but it's not forever. And if you go out there and get some help, then even better. It will pass more quickly.
Is there a time frame that normally happens, or is it completely different for everybody? Is it like a standard that, oh, if you get postnatal depression, on average it lasts around this long, or is there no figures?
Unfortunately, there isn't a pattern like that. What does seem to be the case, though, is people who seek help quicker recover quicker. So that's one of the reasons the NHS and people will say, reach out. And if at first, when you reach out, you don't get sympathy or understanding, or you get shrugged off, don't let that stop you trying again. Try with somebody else. You know, you might have to go through 3 or 4 GPs, or I don't know how easy it is to change health visitor, but 3 or 4 midwives before somebody actually hears what you're saying, which is that you want a little bit of help. So, what we know is that the sooner you get help, the more likely you are to recover. And if you want a talking help rather than a medication help, then also say that, say to your GP, I don't want prescriptions. You might, but if you don't, because the first point of call for the GP might be to offer you prescription medication. Just say, no, I'd like some talking help. Or tell your health visitor that. So timelines with help, probably a few months, 3 or 4 months. I know that might sound like a long time if you're in the middle of it, but it really does depend on your personal circumstances. I can't answer that one, I'm afraid. It's just not very clear.
Like during, obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, would that make people more inclined to get postnatal depression? Has there been any figures or anything that you've known that?
Well, you know what? We've never done this before. There is no research. We're literally all flying by the seat of our pants. And I think what's clear is that people are struggling. This is hard. Do not underestimate. This is hard. What I don't want depression to do for you is to start fooling you into thinking that you're not a good enough mother, or that you're failing, or that there's no point. Those 3 things are not true. They are what depression will make you believe temporarily. This is definitely going to make things harder, without a shadow of a doubt, because contact and community is what helps women through postnatal depression, and we're isolating women from other women, and I think that that's going to make it harder, definitely, which is why what you're doing here, Jade, and the fact that you people listening are kind of getting involved, such a valuable thing to have done, and a lifesaver maybe in some ways. It's really important to stay connected. Yeah, it's a tough one. Being isolated.
It's going to get even at the best of us. I know my mental health, I'm fine, but it's definitely, I'm not as happy as I normally was, and I know a lot of people feel the same as me, because there's nothing to do, whether you're bored or you've got too much to do, or you're stressed, or you're just fed up with the same 4 walls. It gets you down. There's no denying it. So if you
it really does, and research has shown that little things like just saying hello to somebody in the street that you don't know, when you just walk past somebody and go, oh, hi, and then you say something like, oh, it's a nice day, isn't it? Ha, 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 and walk on, or in the supermarket or something. Those little interchanges, we don't notice them, but what it shows is they're really good for us. People live longer when they do more of that. It rates above exercise and eating well, social support and social contact. The second highest on the list was close relationships. Hopefully they aren't being affected too much by COVID if we live with a person we're close to. But just social interaction is very important, and we're not getting that, and that's tough. Yeah, definitely.
And going back to what you said about stress can obviously be a trigger of it. Is there any signs to look out for, or is it just stress the only thing, or if you had anxiety and depression in the past, are you more likely to get postnatal depression? Is there anything like that you can spot the signs?
So one of the things about spotting the signs is sometimes you know before anybody else knows. Sometimes you just kind of know things aren't right, but you don't want to say that because you want to, get on with life and kind of not admit it, I suppose. But if you do have a sense that things aren't right, trust your intuition on that one, okay? Try not to brush it aside or ignore it. You don't have to do anything drastic. Just maybe talk about it or think about it with somebody, anybody, online or not. But sometimes you don't realise, because you know how when you're in the middle of something, you don't realise how bad it is until you go out the other side. It can be a bit like that sometimes with postnatal mental health problems. So if other people are saying to you, you're all right, I'm a bit worried about you, if they're noticing it, that's also a sign that I would say both of those, take note. So things like, it's really hard, isn't it? Because when we've had a baby, we're tired, we can be crabby, we can be tearful, we can feel like we're not very good at what we're doing because we're learning a new job. So all those that are normal in being a new mom also can be signs of depression. So it can be quite difficult to work out, well, are you struggling because you're a new mom and it's normal, or is there something else here? But if it's, if there's no joy in anything you do, if you can't find a moment in the day where you think, well, that was quite nice, then that to me is a sign that something's not right. Even in amongst the kind of upset, we should be having some joy. There should be some moments that feel okay or feel good. If the crying is relentless, for example, then, or if the fear is so bad that you're not able to sleep at night, that would be another sign that I would say, okay, it's worth thinking about telling somebody. Yeah, and if you have had depression or anxiety in the past, you will know what it feels like, and you might be able to wake up to it quicker. But there is also, reason to believe that if you've had depression before or in pregnancy, take your postnatal care even more seriously, because you're at a slightly increased risk of having depression after you've had your baby as well, if you had it before.
And also, how can you tell the difference between the typical baby blues, like everyone mentions, and actually having postnatal depression? Like, how long should it, on average, last for if you do get the baby blues? So how can you tell the difference?
So we don't want the baby blues to be lasting more than a couple of weeks. And as you know, it comes usually within the first week. So days 3 to around day 5 is when you might feel very weepy. As I say, hopefully for the right reasons. But if it continues months afterwards, then that's not a good sign. The other thing about postnatal depression is, just to confuse matters, it can start later. So you can be fine for 4 months and then it kicks in month 5 or 6. I was going to say something that felt important and it's gone. Oh, yeah. And some people think, well, I can't have depression because I love my baby so much. And they think that postnatal depression is about not loving your baby. It can be. It can be to do with problems with bonding with your baby, but it can be the opposite. You can be depressed postnatally and still be very much in love with your baby or very bonded with your baby. It's more about how you feel in yourself. And yeah, I think as a new mom, a lot of the time it's about feeling hopeless, feeling like you can't do anything properly, crying an awful lot, and having no good bits in between all of that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that it's not necessarily straight away. People think if I've got postnatal depression, it will be when my baby's a newborn. But sometimes, like you say, I think I started feeling down when Martha was around 4 or 5 months, and I was like, this can't be postnatal depression. I've passed that stage now. But apparently, is it up to 2 years? It could happen. Is that right?
Yeah, well, most services, like most perinatal health services, will see you up to a year after you've had your baby. But that doesn't mean you can't get it after a year. It just means that's how they kind of cut off their services. But yeah, the changes that you're going through because you've had a baby, they're so fast and they're so monumental that if you think about it, the changes carry on happening after your baby's a year. You still feel like everything's different. So yeah, I would say definitely 1 year, but up to 2, yeah.
And if somebody is on antidepressants from the doctor because they've spoken about it and they're finding it's not actually working, is there anything else you could recommend to go on after medication? Because normally that's sort of the final answer, isn't it? But if you work in the opposite way, is there anything else they could try?
So the government, the NICE guidelines are quite clear that what we're looking for is either a talking treatment or a medication. So it's not necessarily that the medication is the last port of call. It might be your first port of call, and then you might go on to a talking treatment. And talking treatments are things like CBT, cognitive behaviour therapy, or counselling or psychotherapy. Now, you might be able to get that on the NHS. If you've got a budget, then it might be worth seeking out privately. or if you've got health insurance or something like that, you'd be able to get that privately. There's lots of self-help out there. So again, go online, have a look for ways of managing postnatal depression. Just be clear, it's not trauma. If you think it might be birth trauma that's caused it, that's worth flagging up, because there's a different form of treatment for trauma than there is for depression. So yeah, there's some really nice books out there to help you. Am I allowed to say brands and things? Because I think is it NetMoms? I never know whether it's NetMoms or Mumsnet, but they have a really, oh gosh, I wish I had thought about this before I was talking, but they have, so there's this person called Michelle Cree, and she's written a lovely book. Have I got it here? No, that's the wrong one. Called Compassion Focused Therapy in the postnatal period. And she's done a lovely little bit on NetMoms, which is about being kinder to yourself and helping you to go easy on yourself, because people who are depressed are usually very hard on themselves. It's part of the depression, unfortunately. So there's self-help stuff out there you can do as well. Self-help programs, relaxation programs, cognitive therapy programs you can do online if you don't want to actually access one-to-one care. But therapy, I mean, I'm biased, right? I'm a clinical psychologist. I don't prescribe. I do therapy. That's all I've ever done. So I think therapy is amazing. I'm going to, aren't I? Because that's my job. But the other thing about therapy is it lasts. You learn skills during therapy or counselling that will never be taken away from you. You'll always have those.
Sorry, I've just got a private message come in. Someone says, some days I'm really happy, but other days I'm so upset that I feel like just leaving home and never coming back. Is this postnatal depression?
I take it it's new for this, but I'm presuming she's not felt like this before, right? Which makes a difference. So, and it could be. Yeah, it could be. So when I said there's no joy, that's a sign of depression. It didn't mean it can't be depression if there are moments of joy. So your mood can definitely cycle like that, and it's on the low bits, what we call an episode of depression. And if they're lasting 2 to 3 days or 2 to 3 weeks, rather than 2 to 3 hours, then I would suggest, if you know how strong the urge is to get away, and how low you go. It could be actually, yeah. The thing about depression is it isn't like diabetes, or it isn't like malaria. You don't have it. It's not, you don't catch it. It's more on a continuum. So it's more like it becomes clinical depression when it's really messing with your life, or when it's become dangerous. So if you're feeling, like you don't want to be here anymore and you're planning ways to not be here, that's a risk factor. Get some help, yeah? Now with depression, we often feel like we don't want to be here, and we might be fantasizing about not being here, but that's different to planning it, okay? So don't worry if you're thinking about it, because that's normal with depression. Unfortunately, suicidality is quite common. It's dangerous when you start planning. So if that's happening, please get some help. But yeah, it could be depression. And there's some measurements out there if you want to take a look at some of the scales online. There's one called the Beck Depression Inventory, which you can look up. And then there's a hospital anxiety and depression inventory. And there's like you can rate a scale and just kind of see how much you can relate to the questions on there. And that can help you maybe think, yeah, maybe I could do with getting some help.
Emily's asked, can you still breastfeed on antidepressants? I don't know if you know that.
Yes, there are antidepressants you can still breastfeed with. Your doctor will help you with that. There's also a book in the Pinter and Martin series. I don't know if you've come across Why It Matters, which is the series that I was talking about with this book. So it's called Why It Matters series, and it's Pinter and Martin, and there's one that's been released on medication, breastfeeding and pregnancy. I haven't read it. I wish I had suddenly when I'm talking to you about it, but I'm pretty sure that it's up-to-date, research-based advice about what you can and can't take, but your doctor will help you with that as well.
Yeah, I'm guessing you've not spoken to your doctor yet, but yeah, they'll be able to give you the right medication, I'm sure, because I do know somebody that is on antidepressants and they're breastfeeding, so there's definitely ways around that.
Yeah.
I don't know is there anything else you wanted to talk about, because I'm changing the subject a little bit here.
No, keep going, that's fine. And yeah.
Sky's asked, would you be able to talk a little more about postpartum psychosis at the end? I feel it isn't spoken about very much. I suffered with it after having my little girl.
Postpartum psychosis is very, very rare. That's the first thing I want to say. It's dangerous, and it has a massive impact on the family. It's, I think, about 1 in 1,000 women will suffer from it. So we need 999 births before we have one that will experience postpartum psychosis. With psychosis, I don't know if Sky would agree with me within her experience, but generally with psychosis, the mother doesn't really well. She's like a little bit detached from reality. She might be saying things that seem really odd to other people. And so when you hear frightening stories in the news of the dangers of postnatal illness, they're talking usually about postpartum psychosis. And I know it can be scary, and I know, Sky, I'm sorry to hear you experienced it, and I'm sure you would agree with me that it was, at the time, quite devastating for you and your family. But it is very, very rare. I haven't met a woman in psychosis in my job, and I've been in this job for 30 years. Midwives, if you ask a group of midwives, a few of them will have come across you with postnatal psychosis, but not many. So what you're looking for there is, and it's the family that will pick up on it, something's not right. She's not making sense. She's talking weirdly. I don't know what's going on in her head. Maybe behaving erratically as well, unable to sleep or rest. And psychosis develops quickly, usually after the baby has been born, within the first week, and kind of escalates very, very quickly into what can sometimes be a bit of an emergency. So not nice, but luckily very, very rare. And I hope you're okay now, Sky. I hope everything was fine.
Thank you. There's no more questions yet. If anybody's got any, please obviously pop them in the comments. Is there anything else you wanted to cover at all, Mia, or are you pretty much...
So there was just one other thing I didn't say. If you remember, I was talking about writing this postnatal care plan, and how it's about resting and taking care of yourself so that you can recover well. It really helps if you've got a partner to get your partner involved, because otherwise, if you're anything like me and a lot of other women that I know, you won't stick to it. You'll be like, oh, I'll just get up and do the hoovering, or oh, it doesn't matter, I'll make the dinner, or no, I can't stay in bed all day. So it really helps to get a partner on board to help you write it, so that you're both in it together, and he or she can kind of make sure you stick to it, if you like, and be the one who says, no, you go back to bed, I'm doing this, or I've told, not that you'll get visitors at the moment, but I'll tell visitors not to come till tonight, or whatever. And also, just on that note, mental health. So we know that this is a big issue that isn't being addressed in the NHS or even in culture. Partners are struggling. Partners are struggling with birth trauma. Partners are struggling with postnatal depression. Partners are struggling with stress and anxiety. But they're not always asked, are you okay? Or they're not always noticed by other people, because a lot of the attention is on the baby and or the mother. So if you think your partner is struggling, then again, the same advice. Reach out, find somebody else you feel you can talk to, and get the help that you need.
Yeah, I think dads are left out from the get-go, aren't they? It's all about mum throughout the whole appointment with the midwives, and then at the birth. I know Joe, my other half, he was saying like he was just forgotten about it, everything. He wasn't once asked, how are you, do you need anything? Not that like he was there for that, but still just acknowledge he's in the room. So I think it can affect partners without even you realising it, maybe. And that's another reason I think why mums go into this postnatal depression, because all of a sudden it's not about you anymore, when it has been for 9 months. Then you're sort of pushed out for this baby, and it's weird to feel like that, because of course you want it to be about your baby, but it's just that hit that like, oh, nobody really cares about me anymore, although they do. It just doesn't feel like that.
They absolutely remedy that immediately by treating the new mother so wonderfully and looking after her and cherishing her. Absolutely, because there is a need for us when we've had a baby to be attended to and looked after. That's inbuilt. That's absolutely agree with you. And when that doesn't happen, we feel a little bit bereft or lost. Yeah, I think that's a really good point you made there.
Yeah.
It's a shame we don't do it in our society, really.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's a really good idea about your care plan after. I've never heard of an idea like that. So yeah, I think if you're still pregnant, definitely look into doing that. The routine really helps anyway, doesn't it?
Tommy's, I've got one that you can download. If you go on Tommy's website, this is particularly for women who are worried about their mental health around the baby time. And so they ask questions, you print this off and you can fill it out yourself. I've got like a pro forma example, which is much more for everyone. It's just about, hey, I'm going to really look after myself and do wonderful things. So I can send that to people if people are interested, although I had trouble finding it this morning. But just to kind of give you an example of how you might lay it out and what kind of things you might put in it. But yeah, I do it now. If I'm doing a birth class, I always get people to write their postnatal care plan because I just think it's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when this live ends, what I'll do, I'll start a thread in the group about this. So if you've got any ideas of your own, throw them on this thread. Sorry, the cat's just jumped on me. And yeah, we can kind of all brainstorm together and maybe build a great one all together. And again, that's all coming together.
Sounds great. So what a great idea.
I'll get on that when this Charlie's just asked, what if your partner won't admit they're struggling?
Well, that's common as well. As we said right at the beginning, it's something that people like to keep confidential. It's harder for partners to admit they're struggling because they're supposed to be your main support, right? They're supposed to be strong and they're there to protect their family. So there's a lot of kind of like pressure of masculinity, if you like, I think that makes it harder for partners to admit that they are struggling. I really don't know. You know your partner better than I do. Whatever normally would help him to come round to noticing or doing something about this. But sometimes, we said earlier that sometimes all you need is like an hour in the bath on a Saturday morning. It might be the same for your partner. So when I talk about writing a postnatal care plan, I make sure people put in it something for the partner. What does he need to help him through the week as well? So that might be, I don't know, not going to the pub, obviously, because you can't do that during COVID-19. But it might also be connecting with friends or doing something that's more of an escape or exercise. Generally, men tend to de-stress with physical stuff because it's testosterone that they're releasing rather than oxytocin. So it might be that, they need to do a bit of a workout or go running or get on the bike, cycling, or get on a game and do some gaming for half an hour or something. But he needs to take care of his. So maybe you could start the conversation that way. Look, are you getting everything you need now that you're a new dad? Is there anything that's going to help you kind of, feel better?
For both of you, isn't it? I mean, more so for the mum because of what you've gone through and actually delivered a baby. But yeah, it's a massive change for the both of you. And even though it's hopefully for the better, it's still a massive shock to the system, definitely. And one thing I will say, from my own point of view, when I started to feel really down, and I'm not one to like talk out loud if I've got a problem, I'm always best to write it, so that actually helped me. I was upstairs and I sent Joe the longest WhatsApp message even though he was only downstairs, and I said, look, I don't want to talk about it, so don't bring it up, but I just want you to know. And he just came up and hugged me, and do you know what, I felt so much better. It's like a weight was lifted. So if you don't feel comfortable enough to actually say the words out loud, and even if you don't initially share it with anyone, write it down like in your notes or handwrite it. It's just getting it out makes you feel so much better. And then if you feel you need to share it with somebody, then just give them that note or the text or whatever. So that helped me anyway, so it might work for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mia. That's been great. I think everyone's really found that helpful. There's loads of comments which you can read when this is over, but
I can find the Facebook page again. Keep struggling.
Oh, bless you. I'll tag you in it, don't worry. But have you said everything you want to say before I just cut you off?
Yes, I have. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that's been valuable for some people. And congratulations on you all for producing lovely babies. And I hope that the future holds some amazing stuff for you. And I hope this lockdown doesn't last too long.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, they said on the news, didn't they, we're on the downward slope now. So that's only a positive. Hopefully this will be the end of it in another 6 weeks or so. So hold out, enjoy this group. And yeah, I'll post some things in the group to this. So keep an eye out and we can all stick together as well. So thank you, Mia, so much for your time.
You're welcome, Jade.
Right, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.